All right. Well, welcome everybody to our first event, more or less, of the DC Bilingual in Bloom virtual celebrations. We're super excited to be the first live event, because it's like an honor to be on top of the schedule, of course. But also, we just love the school. We love seeing y'all so much. We love feeding you. And we're really excited to share a recipe that we know some of you really enjoy. Just before we get started, I wanted to say thank you to you for coming and participating with us. It's always nice to do an event where people show up. Uh, Although if there was only one person, I would make you feel like the most important person in the world. And also just thanks to the support of our event sponsors, donors, and all of the staff and families at DCB that make our jobs so wonderful to do every day. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Chris and I are going to spend the next 30 minutes sharing one of the many amazing lunch dishes that many of you have had at DC Bilingual. It's going to be our Lentil Bolognese. And you can find the recipe in the chat box. Alex is going to put it on there, as well as the event page. And if you have questions while we go, please put them in the chat box, and Alex will help relay them to us. And then we will try and take the last 15 minutes or so to respond. And also, since we're a large group, we appreciate you turning off your videos while we do it, and sound, of course, so that we can focus on something we're learning how to do. So let's get cooking. When Chris and I talked about doing this recipe, hold on, let me not put my note over in the water. When Chris and I talked about doing a recipe, we were thinking about like so many recipes that we get asked to share. And this one we chose because it's, number one, we love doing meatless Mondays at DC Bilingual. This is a recipe that came from, that we kind of tweaked a little bit from years at Centronia before the food we would get. And also it's just like a super easy recipe that somehow, using like stuff you probably already have at home, ends up tasting really good. So we're excited to share it with you and see how today goes. And of course, like Chris had to teach me how to do this because Chris and I actually don't cook that much together in the DC Bilingual kitchen. When people ask me for the recipes, I'm like, oh man, I've got imposter syndrome because I don't cook all the food for you. That is Chef Chris and the team in the kitchen. But we do have a good food relationship. Chris and I talk about food all the time. If you saw our text chain, you'd be like, y'all have a problem. We talk about too much food and take too many pictures of food.
Oh,
Chris, how do you feel about today's recipe?
I feel good, but I don't think you can hear me.
I can hear you now.
You can?
Yeah.
Okay. I was like trying to say something. I feel good about today's recipe. It's really one of our Monday staples. Everyone loves it. I've actually already made it, and I'm about to eat it. So that's what it's going to look like if you are up to snuff.
All right, I'm going to do my best.
But yeah, it's a great recipe. The kids really respond well to it. It's versatile, and it's pretty easy to make. It's pretty straightforward. It's one of our like go-tos on Mondays for that reason, so that we can get started for the week, receive deliveries, and just kind of like kick everything off without having to worry too much about how to get lunch done.
Yeah, I'm also just gonna say that like when other schools ask me about like meatless options on our menu, I usually rattle this one off. I tell people, oh yeah, we do a lentil bolognese, and they're like, what? You get kids to eat lentils? You get kids to eat beans? And I'm like, you don't? Like, what you're wasting your time. Get some beans in those children. So it's a great way to just like be a little more planet healthy, heart healthy, all over healthy. So I like this recipe a lot. So shall we go through like what the ingredients are for this first, maybe?
Yes, I think that's important.
Okay, I got mine here. Should I show mine?
Show it.
All right, I've got a half an onion, 1 clove of garlic, I've got a horse carrot. Okay, so I just have to do a sidebar. This is the biggest carrot that exists. And these are the types of carrots we get at DC Bilingual. And I have no idea how you grow carrots this big, but I have one. And I'm not going to use the whole thing. I'm going to use like half of it. We have, you can use like crushed tomatoes, diced tomatoes. At my house, I have a can of peeled tomatoes I'm going to use. You could probably, could you do this with fresh tomatoes, Chris?
You can do it with fresh tomatoes. It's going to come out very different. I would say canned is great and it's used everywhere. Like pre-processed tomatoes are used everywhere, and the canning changes. You know, it might be jars, but that's still canning technically. Like that's, I think people think of canning as aluminum or tin cans, but folks process their fresh tomatoes from the season and turn them into sauces, crushed, whole, whatever. But yeah, you could use fresh tomatoes, but you're gonna need a lot more tomatoes to get that flavor, and it's gonna take a lot longer to cook out all that excess water.
Got it. Same like tomato paste. You probably should just get a can of tomato paste if you can.
Yeah.
This takes a long time to make. We've got some salt, pepper, and I've got oregano. I don't have dried thyme, which is in the recipe, but because I'm Martha like that, I have some fresh thyme from my garden. And if y'all need some fresh thyme, you can come to the DC Bilingual Garden and I will give you some. I think that's it, right?
Have your onion, garlic, carrot, thyme, oregano, salt, baking soda.
Oh, let me get that baking soda. Thanks for reminding me.
Shazam! I like yesterday, I was thinking about this recipe and I was like, I have no idea what goes into this, and we make it all the time. And now I'm like, oh yeah, it's back in my memory. I'm ready to go. I know what goes in there.
We're ready. We're ready. All right. So, and I also have some olive oil. So, walk me through this, Chris. Everyone at home is watching.
Oh my god, the anxiety builds. All right, so Lola, you have your sauce pot on the stove, your heavy bottom sauce pot. You're gonna add olive oil to that. There you go, something fuerte. You're gonna add olive oil to that on like medium low heat, depending on your stove. You know your stove's better than any recipe for folks that's like maybe following along or planning to make this. So basically, when I say medium low heat, you want your pan to be fully hot and not necessarily cool down when you start adding your ingredients, but you don't want it so hot that when you put oil or put something else, it's like sizzling and popping and all that stuff. So gauge your stove, medium low heat. Olive oil's on.
Because when we cook, so because we're gonna cook some onions, right? And we're not going for caramelized onions. Like, what are we going for?
We're going to like sweat and saute our onions. So basically, you're gonna put your onions in a pot and cook them on that like medium low heat and olive oil until they start to become like translucent, and they're gonna be softer. Like you could like mash it with your finger, and they're not gonna be as strong if you were to take one out of the pan and eat it as a raw onion. But it's still gonna have that flavor and some body to it. It's not gonna be completely mush.
So what am I doing to this onion?
You are going to. Oh. You don't need to intimidate your onions. Dead and ready to go on to greener pastures. So you're going to be doing a small dice on your onion.
Okay. Do this. So while I'm dicing it, can you tell our viewers at home, like, obviously, you know, I'm making enough for my family, which is just me, Nico, and Matt. And Nico and Matt eat like two giant servings apiece. But when we're at school, we're making this for 500 people. Got it. I'm gonna try and angle this down a little bit while I cut. Y'all, I was worried. Alex is like, we want to see your cutting board. And I'm like, but I didn't get a manicure. My fingers look rough. This has not been my pandemic. Okay. All right. So anyways, is that better? Can y'all see a little bit that what we're doing here? I also have horrible cutting skills. When people are like, oh, what's your knife skills? Like, can you teach us knife skills? I'm like, here's my knife skill. Don't cut off your fingers. Like, just keep your eye on the knife.
Yeah. So what Lola's doing there, if you see, she's got her finger just like curled up like that, and she has the knife here. And what she's doing is like basically curling her fingertips away from the edge of the knife. So that as much as she goes up and down, the knife is resting on the front of her hand.
Right.
So that there's no way she's gonna cut her fingertips. I know it looks a little cumbersome or like not like what you would expect to do is like you grab something like this, but to really keep your fingertips out of the way, she's doing that and just going, keeping her knife resting there so that the cutting edge is never really at risk of cutting
Right. And when we teach kids, we call it the claw and saw, right?
her.
Yeah, because you don't want to hold things like this, like that, right? It seems obvious, but you'd be surprised at what instinct tells us how to do things. So I'm gonna dump these, and I think my oil is nice and warm at this point. I'm
All
gonna
right.
put these in there. Listen for any bad noises.
So that's like a very gentle simmer that when Lola put that in there, it's like very light. You don't want to like put it in and a piece of onion pops out. It's so hot. And the water is just like exploding. Because that's essentially what's happening, that like water's coming out and it's like the gases are expanding and that gas will like pop and propel something out of the way. Anyway, Lola's got that in. She's going to grate her carrot. Uh,
Oh yeah, and my onion. What's your theory, Chris, on for those of us who are cooks, when do you salt your food?
Oh man. So I salt my food throughout the cooking process, depending on what I'm making. So like we're gonna have pasta with this. We're gonna salt that water because it's fresh pasta that's been dried out. So people think of like dried pasta as like a less than product. It's a really great product. But anyway, when that pasta starts absorbing moisture again, it needs to absorb moisture to get back to where it was when it first got made, and then that dough needs to cook. So that's why you want your water to be hot. But when it's absorbing that moisture, and you're going to cook it and stop cooking it, it's not really going to absorb anything else until you put your sauce on it. So like if you don't salt the water, then the noodle itself isn't going to really have much flavor.
Got it. Well, is it okay that I just sprinkled a little salt on my onions? Because I like to salt sometimes when I start sauteing.
Yeah, that's cool. Since the technique is it's like sauteing and sweating, the salt is actually going to help the moisture come out of those onions and your vegetables by adding it now. Some things like technical skill or whatever, you do it at different times to prevent water from coming out of things.
Mhm.
But this is something where we want to get that moisture out, get that flavor out. So yeah, salting now is great.
Got it. And just so y'all know, I'm using this tool right here. I love a microplane. Microplanes are my friends. I use them with kids at school. I used it to grate the garlic because personally I don't like mincing garlic. I'm lazy. But I use it for all kinds of stuff because it's also pretty safe. I've only like scratched myself once on one of these things versus like a box grater, which is known for just taking off your knuckles. I like a good microplane for doing my garlic or lemon zest or anything like that. I mean, I can hear these guys are starting to quiet down. I'm gonna give them a little stir.
Yep, stirring them up. I'm gonna grab some garlic out of the fridge to show folks, if they don't have that at home, how to do it with a knife.
Okay, yeah, please do. While you're doing that, I'm gonna deal with this horse carrot.
That horse carrot. That horse carrot is scary, but it's real. People do that. So I have a bunch of dishes in the sink. Don't mind me. All right, so I've got my garlic here. It still has like that paper on the outside. It's starting to grow a little bit because it's been in my fridge for a while. It's a giant bag from Costco. But you can peel some of this off by hand, but sometimes it's a little difficult. So what you do is you just put it on your board, put your knife on top, and give it a little smash. Not like crazy. It's not like TV here. Just to get that paper to loosen up, and it opens up the clove. Then we discard that, right? For the trash. And then that paper's off the outside. You got a root end, and then you got like your sprouting end, I guess. And you're gonna cut from your sprouting end because we're not gonna use the root end. It's gonna be really tough. Depending on how old the garlic is, it could be even woody. So I'm gonna cut that little sprouting end off because it is starting to grow. It's turning green. So the same way we cut like an onion, Lola like went across like that, and then came back and then cut down the other side. That'll help you get small pieces to start with, and then you can just like chop over that again. And since this is a recipe that we're going to be simmering for a while, it doesn't have to be perfect. When you add that to your vegetables, as Lola's about to do, it's gonna continue to cook, soften, and break down.
All right, I'm gonna add these shredded carrots. It's about a cup and a half about of shredded carrots to my half diced onion. See, I'm a baker. I like cooking, of course. I mean, that's my life, but like I also really like baking, and baking is so much more precise, and you can't be like oh, I'll just do maybe a cup or a cup and a half of flour. Like you have to get it down right. But it's kind of nice when you're cooking to be like, oh, if you put in a little bit more carrot or a little bit more onion into this, it's really not going to alter the flavor too much.
Yeah. And so there's two reasons we put carrot in this. One is for like red orange vegetable compliance, and the other one's like traditional marinara sauces or bolognese sauces have celery and carrots, and you stew them for a long time.
That's true.
I wanted to make a lot of flavor by doing simple things with vegetables.
Yeah. Fun fact. We have at DCB, we have to, or any school, when you make school food, you have to have a certain number of red orange vegetables in your food every week, right? So of all the vegetables that we serve children, I think it's like 1 3/4 cups over the week have to be red orange. So when we throw some carrots in there, the kids don't even notice they're there, but it counts towards their nutritional requirements along with the tomatoes. So another way to get those veggies in a sneaky way. All right, we're coming along here. Got my carrots. So I'm waiting till my onions get a little bit translucent, buttery looking, and then I throw in my garlic.
Yeah, you want your vegetables to cook a little bit before you add your garlic, just because you don't want the garlic to burn. And like with that salting to get that moisture out, if you're cooking on too high heat and you go to add your garlic, even after your vegetables have softened, it's not going to be enough moisture in the pan to be like a buffer between that garlic and the pan, and it's just going to start sticking and burning.
Chris, what are your feelings on garlic powder versus garlic?
Oh man, I love garlic powder. It's so convenient and great. I think there's a lot of flavor. If you're new to cooking, and you start trying powdered, dried versus fresh, you'll really start to see the difference in what flavor it brings. But it's definitely a staple in my house because it's really convenient. If you like a recipe like this, after you know how to make it, you can really just grab some stuff off the shelf really quick, get it into a pot, turn it on, clean up behind the kids, and get back to the kitchen and your food tastes good and you didn't have to really put a lot of effort into it.
That cleanup piece. That's another thing I like about this recipe. It's like it's since most of it's in one pot except for the spaghetti and the lentils. I guess it's 3 pots. But like it's very easy to clean out a lentil pot and a spaghetti pot.
Yeah. And something I do sometimes is to like cook my pasta, get it drained, and then start the sauce in that pot too.
Yeah.
Because
exactly.
you really need to wash it in between your pasta, and it's gonna save you those dishes at the end.
All right, the garlic's in, Chris.
Garlic's in. All right, so that's good. We're gonna add our dry herbs and your fresh herbs. So you need to chop that up.
All right, I'm gonna do a sprinkle of oregano.
Sprinkle.
And my thyme. So this is thyme from my home garden, but it looks the same at our school garden. And I just take, my fingers at the top and sprinkle it in. What's the rule for like when you're using fresh herbs, especially because it's getting to the season where everything's fresh? Mm-hmm. Fresh herbs versus dried herbs. Is there a ratio?
There's ratios out there. It really depends on what you're growing because, like Lola, there's so many different varieties of herbs, and some might be more pungent than others, or others might be very mild and delicate. But usually, it's fewer dry herbs than fresh herbs because usually fresh herbs will have more oils and aromatics than dried.
How do you know when your dried herbs? Like, when should you throw away your dried herbs? Because the other day, I'm not opening my spice cabinet because there's some things in here that I'm like, when did I get that? Whoa, that was a crazy trip.
This is my spice cabinet here. It's like my kitchen is so tiny, so I don't know if anybody ever talks to me at school. They know, maybe they don't know. Like my house is always under renovation and I'm working on some project. This is a bin that we have on our shelf with spices. And usually you can tell when they're bad or too old. I almost knocked my computer over. Do I have any dry herbs in here? I don't have any dry herbs in here, but usually you can tell they're pretty old if you open them up and they don't really smell like anything, or they just smell like paper and grassy.
Mm-hmm.
You can put a little bit in your hand and like rub it in your hand to like grind it up lightly and then try to give it a little smell. And if it still smells like grassy or like a homogeneous herbal smell, and like you can't really tell what it is, most of your aromatics are dead and gone, and you might as well let it go. Um, I'm cheap and snobby with food at the same time, so I might throw it away if there's 5 bags of it. But on the other hand, if I want to make like soup or something, I'll throw that in there, or chili, where you're going to use a lot of spices and herbs anyway. If I want to
Right.
make a really nice herbal broth, like vegetable broth, I'll throw that stuff in there.
Got it. Got it. All right. When am I adding this tomato paste?
Ahorita.
Dale. Dale, Lola. All right. How much? Like a tablespoon? 2 tablespoons?
I think so. Let me look at the recipe. I don't want to mess you up.
I'll start with 1.
You need tomato paste is like half a cup. That seems like a lot. Was it a quarter cup?
Oh, right. Well, let's go maybe 3. Tomato paste is so strong, and I'm adding the tomatoes. Okay.
We're gonna move that around in the pan a little bit for a couple minutes. Really want to get all those flavors together. That helps cut down some of the tartness of the tomato, adds a little bit of toasted flavor to it.
It already smells so good. Like I could just eat this in a bowl. Here, I'm gonna bring my computer over so you can kind of see what I'm up to here.
Oh, baby.
It looks beauties.
Flavor.
Flavor time. Get on the flavor train. Choo choo. All aboard. All right, here we go. Here we go. Flavor Town. Next stop, Flavor Town. All right, guys.
Well, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Is DC and Bloom a play on your name?
I mean, obviously I'm the most important person in the world, so of course.
I thought it was like the garden and spring. And
I think that's a question for Alex. I mean, I appreciate that it was, I think we need to do it again though in a year when we actually get to party with my name. So I'm gonna request that we use this whole gala name again.
All right.
Because I don't like that it was used during a pandemic. All right, so I'm seeing some browning at the bottom of my pan. What do I do?
Go ahead and throw those tomatoes in there. So the browning in the pan is going to happen. There's a lot of sugars in that tomato product. Don't worry about it. Even if it gets really dark and you think it's burnt, it's probably just heavily caramelized.
Yeah.
And that's going to come off when you start adding your stewed tomatoes, crushed tomatoes, whatever you have there.
Yeah, big old tomatoes. All right.
And that's going to help get that tomato off the bottom of the pan.
Yes. Smells great.
So,
get a little water in here.
I'm pretty sure Lola did some preparation ahead of time. This recipe calls for water in your recipe, and that's kind of like Alex made this recipe based off what we do at school, and we buy like the same product all the time, and so it's really consistent in that way. But it all depends with everyone watching. Like if you have a canned tomato product and it seems really watery, you may not need to add that water to it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I generally end up, or like a broth. I like to keep broth in the fridge or make broth when like things go south.
What is that thing right there?
So, okay, because I use these tomatoes, they're giant, and I need to be able to mash them, so I use this potato masher to mash them down.
There you go.
That's not, okay, at school, that's not how things work.
No. We have like a giant stick that we use. It's great.
Yeah, next time, y'all, when we're all at school, come to the kitchen and we'll show you some of, they're like our clown car tools. They're just like the biggest whisk, the biggest spatula, giant immersion blender.
I brought this strainer home.
Oh my God. That's not even the biggest one we got, but that's a crazy one. Yeah. It's fun. It's fun playing with these things, but yeah. Big tools mean big mess too.
Yeah. And we got a wonderful staff that really helps us keep it all together, because otherwise it would be a disaster.
Yeah, no. All right, so this is starting to sing to me a little bit. It's making some bubbles. So I'm gonna let that think about what it's done. What else? Should I add a little bit of water to just like get the party started? Because it does look a little like it'll scorch soon.
All right, yeah, add that water to it. And you wanna reduce your heat to a simmer, and let that simmer. I think Lola's done some prep ahead of time she cooked her lentils already.
I did because that's something you should do. It's a good thing to do, like so this is what we're looking at right now. You should throw your lentils in like you can throw them in while you're getting out all the ingredients and, chopping your onion and stuff like that. They don't take long. You just know they're done because they look all plump and happy, and you bite one, and if it's not crunchy, it's done.
Yeah, lentils are great like that. They're great, like Lola said, they cook really quick. So if you're just trying to throw something together really quick, like a grain bowl or something, you can throw them on. They're gonna be done in like 20, 25 minutes.
Yeah, I love lentils. I never thought I'd say that, but here I am,
How
40
about
years
pasta?
old.
Start your pasta?
Huh?
Did you start pasta already?
Oh yeah, I got pasta. So
She didn't want you guys watching pasta boil. So
I thought it might be like like a meditation point. Like maybe we all take a moment and just like breathe, and like it's like ASMR. We watch bubbles in a pot, but we might lose some people. Great. Okay, so this is bubbling away. I do have my lentils. At what point do I add these lentils? And just so you know, I put in here about a cup of dried lentils. So now it looks like that. So just dump it all in.
I miss it. Oh, okay, fancy.
They're brown, they're circles.
So when you add your lentils, basically when your sauce is ready, this is a good point where you can taste your sauce now that it starts to get hot from everything. Make sure it's stirred up together and taste it. The recipe calls for baking soda. And baking soda, sometimes people see sugar in a recipe for pasta sauce. So this is a way for us to not add sugar to it. Basically, the baking soda, if you ever did a science project and mixed baking soda and vinegar, you get this like eruption. And that baking soda is neutralizing the acid in the vinegar, and it's like a violent reaction. But in the tomato sauce, it's going to do the same thing. And when it neutralizes that acid, it's going to bring out some of the sweetness and cut down the tartness and bitterness that comes with that. But if your canned tomatoes are sweeter, or your carrots are really sweet and floral, your herbs are really bright, you may not need that. You might just have to add a little salt. So how's your sauce taste?
I like it, but I also love things that are on the side of acidic. Like I love, I put lemons in lots of things. So I'm gonna try doing the baking soda because I really want to see how it changes the flavor. And I thought that was such a cool, like, science-y fact, because I'm always, whenever like I'm making like salad dressings or any kind of sauce, peanut sauce, whatever, whenever it's like too sour or whatever intense, I always throw in sugar, and I never thought about it in terms of like pH, like acid, and this is your base, and this could help balance it out. So that's a really cool little trick.
If your tomato sauce is already good, but it's good because you like acid, just start with like maybe a quarter teaspoon instead of a whole teaspoon, and then you can work your way up. You really shouldn't need more than a teaspoon with this home recipe. If you do, there's something wrong with it.
How much do you add at school? Oh, it's bubbling. That's cool.
Are you want to show folks? It'll bubble for a little bit.
I'm not gonna stir it.
Yeah.
You see how that's like bubbling up like the volcano in school?
So,
that's kind of neat.
Yeah, those big bubbles in the middle are from the baking soda, not the boiling. But and when you put that in there, you need to stir it. And basically what Lola just showed you, and that reaction you'll see, you want to stir it until that reaction stops, because you don't want to eat raw baking soda. That'll mess your stomach up and it won't taste good in your mouth.
It's good for brushing your teeth, though.
Yeah, it helps with that, and washing your clothes. Baking soda is super versatile. Polishing like your jewelry, or cleaning your sink.
Yeah.
Coffee pot. It's good stuff.
That's some quarantine advice.
Yeah, and it's super cheap. Like you can get a box of store brand baking soda for like 70 cents. So it's a great like all around house cleaner, cooking aid, cookies, baking goods. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I'm watching the bubbles go away. They're just little ones now. So
all right, keep stirring. It might be frothy, more so than like big bubbly.
Yeah, it's like at this point looks the same as it did before. I'm gonna give it a taste. So let me blow on it because It's the worst when you just like are too anxious and just
Yeah.
like create that blister on the roof of your mouth. That is the worst. I can't tell you how many times I've done that at school where I'm like, and I hug God.
Yeah, I like set people up.
That does balance it out. That is so crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's great.
So what you can do is, if you feel like your tomatoes are broken down, your flavors are coming together, and your sauce is pretty much done, you can go ahead and add your lentils to that and let them all simmer together. Your lentils are going to soak up a little bit of that juice. Break down. It all really depends on the application. This, you couldn't really use red lentils in this. You can, but it's going to take a little bit more practice so that you don't cook them into their mush and fall. I think red lentils.
But yeah, I was curious because like sometimes, yeah, I'll go to the rain once upon a time when I went to restaurants. I'm going to show you a picture of what this is looking like right now. So does that look right to you,
It
Chris?
does look right. So you got some water in there. You see how it's like simmering. Those lentils are going to soak up some of that water, and it's going to get thicker. And one thing you can look at is like depending on how watery, or maybe you put too much water in when you added water when you're making this recipe. Let it simmer for a little bit, stir it, make sure, because what's going to happen is like your heavy ingredients will sink to the bottom of the pot, and your water will be on the
Yeah.
top. And you might look in there and be like, oh, it needs to simmer more. It needs to simmer more, but it's getting really, really thick on the bottom, uh, while that water is just floating on the top layer. And you give it a stir, and you realize, oh my God, it's burning, it's
Yeah.
scorching. But so give it a stir every so often just to check and see where you're at. Don't be too anxious, and you've got plenty of room. If it gets too dry, you can add some moisture. If it's a little too wet, you can add a little bit of
How
tomato
did
paste,
you
and that'll help
guys
thicken it up.
figure out, like, because we have to make, again, we make this for about 500 servings at school. What are some of the differences, like, when you're prepping this at school between when, like, versus what I just did here, besides volume?
Hmm.
Are there any, like, technical differences? Do you have to cook it longer because there's more, or is it about the same?
You have to cook it longer because it's so much more. Um, but I think it's pretty much the same. Like there isn't really much really different. I don't think about that recipe. Like we blend our tomatoes differently, but
Cool.
like,
So I was asking because that means every staff person on this call can now sub in on Mondays, right? Like we can take them, we can be like, y'all know how to make this. You just need to make it times.
well, let me screenshot the
100.
names real quick so people can't like.
Yeah, exactly. Don't try to dip out on us.
Amber's in here. Okay, cool. Daniela's in here. All right, we've got a few people.
We've got
Simon,
some subs. We've got some
Simon
subs.
here. All right. Oh, we definitely need to get Simon because Simon loves to eat. Simon's our champion eater.
Yeah, I'm surprised Simon's. Um, so, oh, there's Amber. Hey.
I will cook.
All right, good. See, we already got volunteers. All you gotta do is ask. Put things in the universe. Thank you, Amber. Hey, question, Chris. There's a question in the chat box. What kind of knife are you using at home?
I use my work knives. I actually, as quarantine things were getting like deeper and realer, I went to work and got my knives. But I have this knife here. This is I think a Athlon knife. I got it from Bed Bath and Beyond years ago. It was like really sharp. It's really hard and it's like tough. You can throw it in the dishwasher and it'll be fine. I think it was like 60 or 80 bucks at the time, and this was like 12 years ago. So yeah, it's like a nice utility knife, heavy duty. One thing I don't like about it is that it's like so square along the back, and the handle is that if you set it down, it'll stand up and you cut yourself. That's terrible.
That's dangerous. Yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah.
I got this knife. I think I got it. I think it's a Wusthof or whatever.
Looks like it.
Yeah, and I got it from Matt a long time ago because he was more like when I first met Matt, I didn't know anything about knives or anything. I was using the equivalent of like an old IKEA bendy knife. And he taught me the way of sharper knives. So we sharpen this guy kind of often, and it's for everything. I mean, I don't like using any other knife except for this
Good
knife.
utility knife. Um,
Yeah.
Shorter chef knife is great. Um, and yeah, Lola was saying like they sharpened all the time. A sharp knife is really safer than a dull knife. I don't know if it's like an anecdote people know,
Oh
but
my.
yes, it's easier to cut yourself with a sharp knife and just like touching the blade, but like you don't really run around your house touching blades. But when you're cutting, something like a carrot, like this carrot, this knife isn't that sharp. It's sharp enough, but like this big horse carrot is like really hard to cut. So like if you had a dull knife and you're like pressing down on this to try to get through it, it's easy for you to slip and like really cut yourself bad or stab through your hand. Whereas a
So,
sharp knife will cut more consistently. And even though it'll still be hard to cut this big, thick, hard carrot or like a sweet potato or butternut squash, you still want something sharp. That way you're getting like a consistent slice and you're not just fighting your knife. You're just focusing on the vegetable.
it makes such a difference. My in-laws, their knives are horrible, and every year they have worse knives, and they they just every year when I'm there, someone gets cut because of their knives, and yeah, it's a pattern. Get yourself some sharp knives, and even with kids, for Nico, like when he's cutting, we use this white plastic knife. I don't know. I'll find it around here somewhere, but it's really let me think. Oh well, I'll share it with y'all later for kids. But I will like soon start teaching Nico how to use sharper knives because it's like I've noticed that like kids are actually so worried about cutting themselves that when I give them a sharper knife, they're more careful than any adult I know. So like I feel like like for my own child, I'm willing to do one-on-one, teach him how to use a sharp knife soon, like when he's in kindergarten. For kids at school, we start using sharp knives in second grade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should I show folks what I have here for this lentil bolognese today?
This is Chris's version from prior. Let's take a look at that beauty. You got it. You got to tip it. We can't see that. Oh, you made yours with penne.
Yeah, I love penne pasta. It's really good. This is like photo friendly. It's not really hot. It's just sitting on top of the pasta. I'm gonna add some Parmesan, I think, to this. I also like nutritional yeast on stuff as a substitution for cheese if you have like vegan or dairy allergies or anything like that. But it's also a great substitute. I also like it on popcorn. Nutritional yeast is a good sub for some flavor on stuff like this.
Chris, what are like some of your, so this is a vegan dish right now without cheese on it.
Yep.
What is one of your favorite like vegan foods to eat? Like when you think about like opening that vegan restaurant and like something you're like, this is better vegan than any other way.
Well, I don't know. I feel like I always like to, like a lot of food is vegan and we don't realize it. I think the labeling makes me kind of think about it. Because like when you said it, I thought about fried tofu, like Thai style fried tofu that's like has like a peanut sauce on it. It's like people that hate tofu because they like maybe had like a silken raw tofu that tastes like plain egg whites. It just like are ruined from it. But then if you have something like that, which isn't necessarily healthy, but it's delicious and it's so good.
It is good. Is there a dish that like for a meatless Monday, it doesn't have to be, I guess, vegan, it could be vegetarian, that you want to introduce into the DCB menu rotation? Like what's something interesting to you?
So we do pupusas there. And that's like a big challenge. I would love to try to figure out a way to do like cheesy quesadillas or like the tortilla one, not the bread. Or like enchiladas. We've done like a play on enchiladas. We do breakfast enchiladas, but I would love to do enchiladas. That's like a big deal in my family, and I would love to be able to make that at school.
Yeah, I agree. I think that would be earth shattering. There's some good enchiladas because our children, most of them do love cheese so much and cheesy things.
Yeah.
And also for staff, I think it would be really popular.
I think
Yeah.
that was one of the first recipes I started testing when I started there, and we were still catering food out or getting like food catered. Was like black bean enchiladas.
Yeah, that's right. Those are really good. I also like hope and pray one day we can get a good curry on the menu that kids will eat, because I know the staff's into it. And it's also like a great one pot type dish.
Yeah.
But it's hard to get kids to not throw it away.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that. Like maybe we can do like a darker curry, like peas and potatoes. Lola did a really great thing last year with some Indian dishes, and I think that if we try some of those, kids might be amazed. Hey, there's some strange guy walking around your house.
We don't know. I mean, we don't lock our
Yeah,
doors here.
stealing a banana.
This is Chef Stevens,
Hello.
who joins me in the kitchen often. He's
It smells good in here.
I know, it's good. Lentil Bolognese.
Oh.
Alex, should we start to open the do we want to open up for more questions? How are we doing?
Sure, we've got about 5 minutes left.
Great.
I can either I think that folks can unmute themselves if they want to ask a question.
Cool.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from people.
So if anybody has a question, they're welcome to ask.
Hey, hi, Money. Skylar. Oh, I see Skylar's hand. Let's call on Skylar.
Well, I didn't know what a cup of quarter you were gonna do.
You didn't know what kind of recipe we were gonna do?
No, a quarter cup of. You said you were gonna put a quarter cup of something.
That's right. It was tomato paste. Thanks for getting that clarification. So tomato paste, you can get it in a tube or something like this. So that's what we use after the garlic, when we did onions, carrots, garlic, then tomato paste, and then the herbs and stuff. All right. Any other questions? Yes, Miss Imani. Hi, Miss Imani.
Hi. Quick question about the nutritional yeast. Do you do anything to it to make it actually taste like cheese, or do you have to put like a lot? Because I have it, but I have never been able to like make it really taste like cheese.
You should have. I was trying to see if I had. There's like a Now Foods brand that's in the health food section, which is sometimes cheaper than the food section. But anyway, usually I try to think of it as like the notes of cheese, and not actually cheese. Like there's elements of it that taste like Parmesan. Like if you put nutritional yeast and salt and breadcrumbs in a bowl and mix that together and taste it, it's gonna taste like Parmesan. But if you put it with like a little bit of mustard or something in a cheese sauce, it's gonna taste like cheesy mac, like Kraft or something like that.
Awesome. That question is very good.
Thank you.
Of course, you're welcome.
Any other questions while we're here?
And say something.
In your faces.
Simon.
Simon, dinos.
My name? No, is it Demos?
We're just checking on you, Simon. We missed eating you.
Something's wrong with Simon. We gotta send somebody over there. He's speechless.
I know.
I have a question.
Says the host, stop my video.
Sorry.
We've been
All right,
cutting.
Alex,
I have a question for you both. I noticed that you were using
Calling in.
the garlic with green in it. I've heard that's bad for you. Is that true?
I don't know about that. What I've always found with garlic that's sprouted is just that it's a little more bitter. That's why once it sprouts, I generally toss it out. But I don't know. What do you think, Chris?
I think the same thing. Like it's not as it's like definitely more bitter. The only reason I have it at this point is because I like impulse bought like a delivery from Costco, and it had it was like a pound of garlic, because I thought they were like larger garlic heads, and I was gonna do something with that. But when I started to break them apart, they were all like these little slivers of garlic heads. It's really terrible. But I usually don't try to use it just for that same reason. I don't think it's necessarily bad for you. It does have some more beneficial properties if you cut the garlic
I'm trying to do my
and let it sit
video.
before you eat it.
Right on.
That's something that it does. I don't know. It's a lot to it.
Nice. All right.
All right. Simon, are you coming back? I
Now-
saw a baby with the phone. Oh my goodness. Hello.
We thought it was a call-in show.
Nala?
You look very upset. Like somebody has you on hold for 40 minutes. Trying to get a refund for your shoes.
You guys are doing a great job. We love the cooking tips.
Yeah, and if you guys have ideas of other recipes Chris and I can make live and in person, we'd be happy to do it together. Sometimes I get people asking me to make recipes, and like I said, I always feel dumb because I'm like, Chris has a recipe and it's for 500 servings. So figuring that out is a little.
We could come pick some up. We don't mind.
There you go.
Take them right off your hands.
Me too. I will also come.
Lola,
Yes.
can we do like spaghetti squash?
Ooh, spaghetti squash is such a good, I mean, like it's one of my favorite winter vegetables to play with. And I think we tried a little bit with doing some tastings in the school year, spaghetti squash. Sometimes squash is hard for the kitchen to do a lot of. They can do some for like a small class, but it's, because squash, when you cut it with those sharp knives, is actually kind of slippery. And so if you're cutting one at home, you can be really careful. But when you're cutting like 40 and you're in a rush, sometimes we avoid cutting a lot of squash at school to keep our hands safe. However, I like your request, and I am definitely open to doing more spaghetti squash next year. It's a great, it's like one of those cool things. Like I never had it when I was a kid. I think I first tried it maybe 5 years ago, and I was like, this is a miraculous vegetable.
Me and my family are having it tonight.
Ooh, good choices. Well, you should eat it with this. If you make the lentil bolognese, they go well together.
Okay.
Great.
Any more questions?
I think.
My listener call-in audience.
And this is Karen Juarez.
Hi, Karen.
Will we be able to have more vegetarian options like a veggie burger?
That's such a good question. So Virginia, Vivi, we call her, one of our top cooks in the kitchen, has really been working during quarantine on perfecting her veggie burger. So she's been playing around. Yeah, she told me last week that she's been like mixing stuff because I think we did a veggie burger was it this year or last year?
Last year we did a sweet potato black bean veggie burger.
Yeah, and it didn't like go over super well, but we're gonna try it again because we do not give up. So yes. Awesome. Well, I'm gonna wrap things up because we are coming towards the end of time. Like I said, it was so much fun doing this with you. My house smells great. Dinner's done. I can go out and play in the backyard now. And I hope that you all will join other events this week. There's going to be so many fun live events. There's one tomorrow with Daniela. She's interviewing Lulu Delacre, who's an author of children's books in Espanol. And Mr. Rodi is going to do a DJ session, I think on Friday. Miss Karen is doing a Zumba session. There's just like so many fun things. So I'm going to join, and I hope you do too. Chris, are you going to come in on this?
I'll be there.
All right. I mean, I'm definitely doing the dance party, so I better see you there.
There you go.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, you guys. All right. Hi, Ezzy. It's so beautiful to see you all, and enjoy. Let us know, or let Alex know how your home lentil bolognese went. We'll see you all soon.
Yeah.
Love you guys. Bye.